Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hailing from. My name is Eric the IT Guy Hendricks, and you are watching Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents. We are live on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. It is a glorious 91 degrees here in Kansas City. It would not be RHEL Presents without my favoriteest co-host, Mr. Brian Smith.
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
Well, I've got to admit, it's been a bit. I mean, between summits and reschedules and guest hosts, it's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on, so it's good to be back.
Right? It's just not RHEL Presents without you. I mean, especially with that Nate guy. I mean, it's just, I tell you what. Well, all that said, we've got an awesome episode planned for you. We're going to be talking about avoiding obsolescence with in-place upgrades. If that doesn't sound ominous, then you came to the wrong place, because I don't know about you, Brian, but next spring of 2024 is going to see a huge change in the Linux ecosystem.
Yes.
And actually, I should say a list of changes to the enterprise Linux ecosystem. We'll talk about all those dates and more, but it wouldn't be RHEL Presents without a couple of cohorts to join us. And so today we're renaming RHEL Presents to the Bob Show, because joining us today are Bob Mader and Bob Hanlon. Bobs, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So let's go across the board here. Bob Hanlon, you want to start and introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do here at Red Hat, and something you do for fun.
Well, the fun part. Let's see. Can you guess? Maybe. I am an experienced product manager, and I have worked on and off on upgrades over the years. But I am the person sort of in charge of deciding what to build next when it comes to upgrades. And because of that, and Bob and I have become partners in crime on trying to figure out how to get people from A to B and overcome the thing you ominously mentioned in the intro. And as you can see, I sing and write songs and play guitars for fun. So
Gotcha, that's awesome. So will you be performing later in the episode?
My instinct is to say yes, but it's really probably not the way to go.
If the demo bombs, you can always pull out the guitar.
That's the backup plan. Yeah.
I was in the meeting earlier. We were talking about when you had the overhead projectors and you had the slides you had to put on the overhead, that it was really good to know how to do shadow animals for the moments when things went wrong. Well, maybe the guitar playing is a version of that. I don't know.
There you go. Having grown up and attended a school that had overhead projectors, I can attribute to the importance of shadow puppets. Although some of the younger folks in our audience are probably going, overhead what?
Overhead, yeah.
Mr. Bob Mader, welcome to RHEL Presents. Why don't you introduce yourself? Same questions. Who are you? What do you do? And what do you do for fun?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bob Mader. I've been at Red Hat for about a year now. What I'm working on right now is developing and curating the automation approach that we use for doing RHEL in-place upgrades, and making that something that is easy for our customers to do, and also easy for our field organization to articulate and deliver.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, and what do I do for fun?
Is that what you do for fun?
Yes, actually it is. I'm a geek.
I've seen evidence that's probably it.
My first computer in high school was a PDP-11, just because that's how old I am. I've been a computer nerd my entire life, and loving it. Coming to work for Red Hat has been a dream come true for me. Best thing that happened to me since I started at DEC back in the 80s. How's that?
So we're arguing they won't know what a shadow puppet is, but they will know what a PDP-11 is. I love that.
Yeah, of course they won't. They won't know who DEC is either. It's all right.
Yeah, DEC. Oh, that's even worse, isn't it? They don't know what DEC is. Oh my goodness. I really feel when you say things like that.
So at the beginning, Eric alluded to June 30th, 2024. What is happening that date? You guys talk a little bit about that?
I can take that one. So It's end of maintenance. So as we know, RHEL has 10-year life cycle. So it'll be 10 years since RHEL 7 arrived on the scene. And so that's the date at which the maintenance phase of RHEL 7 ends. And as such, most of our customers are trying to figure out what to do next. So we announced recently that you can stay on 7 a little longer, but you're not in a very great place if you're still on 7 at that point. So we're trying to make it easier and better than it ever has been to just get off of 7 and get onto something else.
So there's a number of events taking place early 2024, and of course I'm trying to share my screen while talking, and that's not working out great. But here it is. So we actually publish a lot of this out on our website. Easiest way to get there is probably just to check the show notes, and if not, go out to your favorite search engine and just search for RHEL Lifecycle. Because in June 30th of next year, there is a series of events between May 30th and June 30th that'll take place between RHEL 6 going end of life, RHEL 7 going end of maintenance. I think RHEL 8 goes into maintenance mode on May 30th as well. So between those two dates, there are several events that take place, and we can either just bury our heads in the sand and we can look at this as just another thing that we have to do as infrastructure managers, or something else we can do is we can take this event and we can use it as a way to change the paradigm in which we manage our infrastructure. How about that word, paradigm? We don't use that very often. I had my Cheerios this morning. But I mean, just for years, a new major version of an operating system, be it RHEL or others, you end up in a situation where you're basically doing a rip and replace every few years. Hardware goes out of maintenance. Operating systems go out of maintenance. A particular version of a software library is no longer available. So you usually find yourself in this position where you're having to scurry to find a new approach, to find what am I doing, or just grabbing new hardware, new operating system, new version of your application, and then you're stuck in this situation where it's like everything's new. I imported all my data from the old system into the new one. Then we powered up the new stuff. We shut down the old stuff. I'm not speaking from pain-filled experience or whatnot. A 6-month upgrade that took 2 years and was $10 million over budget, something like that. It was great. Worked out well. But one of the things, and one of the reasons why I was really excited to bring you guys on, especially after Summit, you guys gave a similar version of this presentation, and then I think you guys and I did kind of co-presented a lightning talk about in-place upgrades. But Red Hat has seen this issue, the upstream has seen this issue, and we're in a position now better than ever where we can address this issue with things like in-place upgrades.
That is absolutely true. And Bob, we were joking this morning. There's a guy named Mike Savage who worked very closely with Bob on the creation of the demo. And Bob was sort of joking that he drafts off Mike's work a little bit. I draft off Bob's work a lot. Bob helped make me famous because he's done this before. In fact, Bob, tell the story, man.
It is quite a story. So in addition to my dream job working at DEC, which then became HP and Compaq and then HP, in about 2004, for I don't know why, I decided to leave the tech industry and take a job at a big global Wall Street bank. So that was 2004, and I like to think that I'm part of the movement that brought Linux to Wall Street. All the big banks were Solaris or AIX or some flavor of one of the armies of the Unix war, and Linux was just coming up to speed. And then I led the Linux engineering organization at this bank for I was there 18 years. In 2019, we started a project to automate RHEL in-place upgrades at the bank, and this was RHEL 6 to 7. and the bank had just north of 70,000 RHEL 6 instances globally in their data centers around the world. And so automation was really important, and we built the automation, and we integrated in some other features and capabilities, and it was wildly successful. They hit a run rate in production of around 2,000 upgrades per month globally by all the different operation teams, just using the automation that we created in a self-service fashion.
That's absolutely amazing. So what drove the decision to do in-place upgrades versus just rip and replace?
I tell you, if in-place upgrades had been supported going RHEL 3 to 4, I would have used them then. When I started at the bank, that was RHEL 3. It's still like a 32-bit bare metal servers. Nobody even hardly used VMware. I don't know if they were a thing yet. And so going from RHEL 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, it was a headache. And you explained it, Eric. It's like you've got a 10-year life cycle, which is fantastic, right? RHEL is good for 10 years from GA to when it finally hits what's coming up next year in June. And over those 10 years, apps get deployed the old-fashioned traditional way. They get manually installed. The configurations get manually edited. There's all this drift and technical debt that accumulates over that time. And then you come along and say, hey, app teams, we're going to take away your server and deploy your app on a new one. And they don't even know, like the guy who installed that software is gone. They don't know all the changes that they're going to have to do. It's like you might as well just tell them to start all over. Plus, by going on a new server, their IP address is going to be different. And that's going to break the firewall rules. And it takes like 3 months to get a new firewall rule provision and blah, blah, blah. It's just incredibly painful for app teams to move to a new server with a traditional app. And so when Red Hat finally introduced the capability to do in-place upgrades with RHEL 6 to 7, we're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. There's absolutely no way we're not going to use this. Our app teams are going to love it. And they did. And that's another reason this was so successful, is it's so compelling to the traditional app team that has all this technical debt. What I like to say is in-place upgrades gives the app team it renews the lease on their technical debt. It doesn't make it go away. It doesn't fix the fact that they're a traditional application that's being manually configured and managed and lovingly cared for like the pet that it is. But you know what I'm saying?
I totally agree with you. I wish that we had in-place upgrades back in the day when I was a sysadmin. The way we did it, we would build a new server with the new version of the operating system. We would copy over as much as we could, like recreate users, copy over data, and then the day of the migration, you'd shut down the old one and then change the IP address on the new one to what the old one was, and then just see what broke, and that was not a very good way to do it. It's so much easier if you can just take all those settings and files and users that are already on the system and just upgrade what you have. So it's really exciting that we now have this available and just such a time saver. So can you?
Well, and to
go
be honest,
ahead, Eric. Yeah.
And to be honest, when I was a systems administrator, I was still a Fedora user on the side. And so I'd have Fedora Linux on a server for home projects, or I'd have it on a laptop. Like the machine sitting over here next to me, I think started out on like Fedora 32, 33, somewhere in that space. And for years, I've done in-place upgrades on Fedora systems. And that process is so smooth and so easy that it's a non-event, really, because every 6 months or so there's a new version of Fedora Linux, and it's just like, okay, instead of the 2 minutes I need to run a DNF update, I need 15 minutes to go in and do an in-place upgrade and upgrade all my apps, upgrade all of the underlying operating system, and it's fantastic. And there's always been this I won't say always. It's been this it's just been this disconnect between why can't this system over here, why can't I do the same thing in my data center with these 70,000 systems that I've got running there?
There's an exceptionally good reason for that was really hard to solve, and that's where the whole Leapp thing came from in the first place, which is Fedora only has the burden of going from one set of packages to the very next in the kernel, right? And we had this thing where we hardened one of the kernels along the way, and then some number of years later, we hardened a different kernel, and the package evolution between those two things needs to be managed somehow, right? That's where we get stuck. And so that was the whole art and science of the tool that sits in the middle of these in-place upgrades. The Leapp tool was, if you need to go from, what do we go from 418 to 514 or something like that? I forget. Yeah.
Sounds right.
No one else has to do that exact thing. So you better have something that says, oh, here's what changed. I understand all of it. And, oh, you're fine here, but you need to do this over here. And that package went away altogether. That doesn't happen in your Fedora upgrade. I think that's really like the reason any of this exists, to be honest.
So Bob Mader has lovingly worked with our buddy Mike, who's hanging out in the YouTube chat. Shout out to Mike for all his work on this.
Thanks, Mike.
But so what you're telling me is that I can now do an in-place upgrade from one version to the next. But that's got to be difficult. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of packages. You're talking like Bob was just talking about. You're talking about major shifts in the kernel version. You're talking about major changes in underlying libraries like Python, things like firewall D, OpenSSL, because that's 3 years of development from RHEL 8 to RHEL 9. Bob, this has got to be incredibly difficult.
It is, and
what we call a setup.
I get it. Well, I tell you, so one of the absolute joys I've had the opportunity of since I joined Red Hat is getting to know the guys over in the team that does the engineering on the Leapp tool, and they are brilliant. And Bob talked about the package evolution, and they've engineered this package evolution database that kind of abstracts and makes it easy to automate and cope with that big delta when you do a RHEL upgrade. Fedora was like every 6 months there's a new release, and there's not such a huge delta between what's different between each release. And the FedUp tool, was pretty simple and straightforward, and it just kind of upgraded the packages and everything worked. It's a lot more complex in RHEL, but the Leapp tool takes care of that and does a really good job about it. And so from the perspective of, oh my God, yeah, the new version of RHEL is so different, the Leapp tool handles it. Now, the Leapp tool, the Leapp framework, I should say, it's a framework, not a tool. Okay, it takes care of RHEL, but it doesn't take care of everything. And so this is another reason automation is really important if you're going to do a large RHEL fleet and do in-place upgrades, because you not only have to upgrade RHEL, you have to upgrade all the tools and agents that are part of your standard RHEL build. And so you need to add a little bit of extra automation to take care of those products, particularly the ones that are tightly integrated at low levels of the operating system. Anything that's got third-party kernel drivers, or anything that's like some of the security scanning tools that all the banks are in love with, have kind of low-level hooks into the operating system, the file systems, to be able to do those scans. Database software, clustering software, those can be kind of tricky. But you can automate additional automation to take care of those tools. And once you figure that out, then you wrap that around the Leapp tool and everything works.
So I'm sold. I will never do a rip and replace ever again. In-place upgrades all the way. The only problem with that is Brian doesn't look convinced. So I think we're just going to have to show him.
I think a demo would be like super appropriate right about now.
I think so too.
Love to actually see this. It sounds good, but we want to see it.
Absolutely. So
he has one. This is awesome.
Oh yeah. Wow, what a coincidence. Yeah, look, so we'll get into the demo, and let me, before I talk about the demo, and this is not a sales slide. There are no Red Hat products mentioned on this slide, right? What this is, when I did the in-place upgrade automation at the bank, we figured out that these are the 4 key features of your automation solution for upgrades that are going to be key to your success. Obviously, automate everything, but an automated snapshot rollback capability is super important. It reduces the risk for your app team, so I don't have to worry about what if my application is going to be impacted or there's going to be a big outage in my production environment. You just hit the rollback button and you're fine. You're back where you started, no problem. And it also helps with iterating through developing the custom automation that you're going to need to handle the custom tools and agents and all the things that are specific about every organization's RHEL build. And so custom modules, we talked about that. That's the custom automation that you need on top of what Leapp does. And then a reporting dashboard, which is just a way to visualize the pre-upgrade reports that come out of the Leapp tool, so you can look at those at scale across your whole environment, and then also just see the progress of upgrades as the solution is rolled out, and your CIO and his risk management people with their compliance reports can go, oh yay, finally they're getting off of the end of vendor support, and the auditors are going to be happy again.
And never underestimate the value of a good report to management, right?
Absolutely.
So true.
Absolutely.
So true.
And you know, it's a funny thing. What a lot of people assume that what's compelling about this solution and in-place upgrades is that it satisfies a headache for, you know, platform infrastructure teams or for app teams and developers, but it's also addressing a huge pain point for you know, compliance particularly within regulated industries like the banks, you know, but you know, anywhere where complying and keeping your environment secure is important, which really should be everywhere. So yeah, you asked about the demo, not this salesy slide. So that's enough pitch for, you know, the solution approach. It's based. So what we're going to look at today is a workshop lab that Mike Savage and I have been working together on, that is kind of a reference implementation of this automation approach with those key features implemented. And this is something that we've been developing as part of a training workshop so that we can demonstrate the approach to customers and get our services organization up to speed on how to do this so that they can deliver it for customers. And oh, by the way, it's all open source, so it's really open to anybody that wants to look at it and use it. So what's in this workshop lab environment? There's an AAP automation controller here. Okay, that's the automation control plane, if you will. AAP is a Red Hat product for allowing you to be able to essentially run Ansible playbooks across a large estate of not only RHEL hosts, but, you know, Windows, network gear, whatever. I'm not gonna, that's the end of my Ansible advertisement. Then we have some pet application servers. These are our beloved pets. And look, they have little pet names. We have Heroic Minnow and Open Panda. And when this workshop is deployed in Amazon Cloud, the automation that actually provisions the workshop chooses random pet names. And so these are the actual pet names that were chosen when I provisioned this workshop lab environment yesterday. We have 2 RHEL 7 servers, and then we have 2 RHEL 8 servers, Rich Beetle and Joint Cattle. And for our snapshot rollback capability, because we're in the Amazon cloud, we're going to be using EBS snapshots, elastic block storage snapshots, which is a snapshotting capability that comes with EC2 on AWS. So that's the lab environment. Now, I will, out of full honesty and disclosure, I'll tell you right now, OpenPanda is still running RHEL 7. Heroic Minnow, I upgraded in advance to RHEL 8 because the upgrade, the automated upgrade takes about 20 minutes. And so I am going to, at some point, do the cooking show trick where I take the baked cake out of the oven, right?
So quick question, Bob. So if you're on a different, platform hypervisor, like for example, you're running RHEL with on a VMware environment, I would imagine you could plug in some other automation to do the backup and restore steps for that kind of environment as well. Is that right?
That's a great question, and that is absolutely right. So for VMware, you can use VMware snapshots. For bare metal, actually for bare metal or VMware, you can use LVM snapshots. And I actually prefer LVM snapshots over over VMware snapshots for a couple reasons, which I can actually get into right now, I guess. Well, so I'm not going to talk through this entire slide, but at least now it's here and it's captured and memorialized on YouTube for forever and ever when this video is recorded and put out there, right? The challenge there's two challenges with VMware snapshots. One is the storage space that's required often isn't there in the data stores just because of the way customers deploy VMware in their environments. They overcommit the storage. They use every last amount of space in the data store before they provision more storage. And so there isn't a lot of space for doing snapshots. And unlike just a static VMDK for a new VM, snapshots grow in size over time. And that's something that's kind of not, the ClickOps teams that manage VMware environments aren't used to that and they don't like it. The other challenge is, and maybe because of the storage challenges, is those ClickOps teams that manage the VMware environment I really don't want to give you access to their APIs. They like, no, this is a ClickOps environment. Don't try and automate our ClickOps environment. And so there can be a lot of pushback, and it's an organizational, cultural thing that is just something with VMware, right? You know, when we do IaaS in the public cloud, like with Amazon, everybody assumes, oh yeah, you're going to use APIs. But for some reason, when we do IaaS on VMware, it's like, don't ask for access to the APIs, just use the VMware tools. Okay, fine. I'll get off my soapbox. But if you're going to do VMware snapshots, be prepared to collaborate, have good collaboration between your Linux engineering teams and your VMware teams, who are often separated by very high silo walls in the organization. The other problem with VMware snapshots is, unless you've been very crafty about how you deploy the VMs, the operating system and the application data are all together. And there's no way to snapshot the operating system without also snapshotting the application data. So app teams, you're going to want some soak time after an upgrade happens to say, okay, we're not sure if our app's good or not. Let's let it run for a while, and then we'll decide whether we can get rid of these snapshots or not. But if you've snapshotted the application data as well, and then 3 days or a week when they run their end-of-week reports or something, they discover there's been some application impact and want to roll back, they've got a problem, because now they've applied changes and worked on their application data, and you're going to roll back the application data too. With LVM snapshots, it's much easier to separate the snapshots so that they're just you're just snapshotting the operating system and you're leaving the application untouched, which is what you want to do in place upgrades, because the applications are going to work if you just leave them untouched. They'll be fine after the upgrade.
Gotcha. So let's dive into this. I'm anxious to see the pre-upgrade process.
Right, absolutely, great idea. So this is the AAP web console or web UI. There's a place here called templates. So these templates are just patterns for running specific types of playbooks to do automation. So I've got an analysis job template here that is going to run an analysis playbook, and that analysis playbook runs the Leapp pre-upgrade. And after that runs, I can go over to my RHEL web console and look at the upgrade report there, and I'm going to see something like this. So here I ran the pre-upgrade report. This is a report that's generated by the Leapp tool, and it runs a bunch of checks. It scans your RHEL system to see what potential issues are there. And here we can see, oh, there are a couple, well, there are quite a few high risk factor ones, but 2 of them are listed as inhibitors. One is complaining about because of changes in the OpenSSH default configuration, you won't be able to log in as root with a password anymore because of the configuration we have there. And then this one is asking us just to acknowledge that this PAM module is going to go away, and we have to provide that acknowledgement in a answer file. So I'm going to hit these 2 inhibitors on every RHEL instance in my environment. So what I'm going to do is I have a job template I called remediate, which is going to fix those 2 issues. And I'm going to run my remediate on all my RHEL 7 hosts. Well, no, I just need to run it on, what was it? OpenPanda. Okay. And we'll launch that job. This runs really quick because it's just reconfiguring OpenSSH and restarting the OpenSSH server, and then adding that entry into the Leapp answer file. And so when you submit and launch a job template on AAP, it takes you over to this jobs view and shows you the log output for that job. And we can see it's failed equals 0, which means it was successful, and it says successful here with a pre-green check mark. And now if I go back to templates, analysis, launch, and fill in the blanks, and what did I say? OpenPanda.
Yep, OpenPanda.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and launch that. The pre-upgrade report takes a few minutes to run, but after that's finished running, we'll see that those inhibitor findings are no longer there because we ran that automatic remediation. And so you can see how these different pieces of automation fit together to help you smooth through having in-place upgrades happen at scale, because you can prepare your environment so that you don't have any inhibitors when you run the Leapp tool. Because a lot of people I talk to is like, oh yeah, we tried a Leapp upgrade and it didn't work because we got all these inhibitors and we didn't know what to do, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really that big a deal.
While this report is running, take a quick moment to mention that if you want to do an in-place upgrade, just the actual upgrade steps, we actually have a self-paced lab over at lab.redhat.com. The link to that, along with some of the other links we've mentioned in this show, will be available in the show notes shortly after this show goes off the air. So go ahead and check out that self-paced lab.
Cool. I just wanted to throw this slide up here. This one kind of shows the different Ansible playbooks that are part of our automated approach workflow, right? So we just ran the pre-upgrade analysis. Well, we ran one before. We had those inhibitors. So we saw the inhibitors and we said, oh, we got to apply some remediations. And now we're running the report again. This time the report's going to look okay. And then we're going to move into the upgrade phase where, having done that pre-upgrade and seen that everything looks reasonably risk-free, we're going to go ahead and do the upgrade. And for that, we're going to run an Ansible job template that's a workflow template, which does a snapshot first and then actually runs the Leapp upgrade that is going to make my RHEL 7 host into a RHEL 8 host. And so that's what we'll be doing next. And this is just kind of a high level overview of what that workflow looks like. Obviously, if you're, a big bureaucratic bank, you're going to have your ServiceNow workflows plugged in here and your change management and yada yada. But this is just kind of a high level thing that shows you what's going on. Let's see how our pre-upgrade report is running over here. Is it still going? It's still going. Are there any,
possibly go wrong on a live demo?
Yeah, I know, right? It should take about 2 or 3 minutes. I just didn't talk long enough about the workflow. Maybe there's some questions in the chat.
One thing I was going to just clarify, I don't think we ever clarified exactly what versions we support upgrading from and to. Can you clarify that, Bob?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So the Leapp framework supports taking RHEL 7 to RHEL 8 and taking RHEL 8 to RHEL 9. Now, I talked about doing RHEL 6 to 7, which is what we did when I first started with this automation approach at Citi, at the bank, and so with RHEL 6 to 7, it's a different tool. It's not Leapp. It's called the Red Hat Upgrade Tool. But what's great is we've developed a collection of Ansible roles that is kind of a wrapper around Leapp. And those Ansible roles also support RHEL 6 to 7 using the old tool. So if you're using our Ansible roles, you don't even have to worry about whether it's Leapp or the old tool, and you can do RHEL 6 to 7, 7 to 8, or 8 to 9. And when 10 comes out, you'll be able to do 9 to 10 using the same roles and the same playbooks.
Very cool. So if you're running any version of RHEL that has any type of support currently, you're eligible to upgrade it, basically. So very cool.
Yeah, and there's, for minor versions, there's a matrix out there that people can go find that we try to set up windows that are big enough, because as Bob learned when he did it, even when you have all the automation in place, it still takes a good amount of time to roll out the actual upgrade. So we try to keep it open for 2 years on an even numbered minor. So you do have to plan ahead a little bit on that front.
Gotcha. So it looks like the report is done, and I don't see any inhibitors, but I do see quite a few red items here. What's going on with that? Am I in serious trouble here with an upgrade?
Oh yeah, this is the end of the world, Eric. No, thanks for that great setup. It's not the end of the world. I will say, as much as I love the engineers who put together the Leapp framework and all of these checks, they're a very cautious bunch of guys. And so if there's any possibility that something might go wrong, they're going to hit you with a high risk finding. And if you read the language on most of these, it's going to say things like, it's possible that this might go wrong, or there's maybe a chance. And so because we're doing automation, and because we have automated snapshot rollback capability built into our solution, I say, hey, don't worry about all these high findings that might go wrong. Just upgrade it, fail fast, see what happens, and maybe everything's going to be okay. And if not, you've got the rollback capability to, save yourself if it does go bad. So I say, don't worry about the high findings, except for the inhibitors. Those you've got to fix, because otherwise you're blocked. And then go ahead and try it. And if it doesn't work, figure out why, roll it back, add the necessary adjustments to your automation, rinse and repeat until you get it right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing to think about is an automated analysis tool like this can only carry you so far. Like looking at a couple of the highs there, one of them was that Grub was going to be updated. It's like, well, I would kind of hope so. I'd like to boot off that newer boot image instead of the older one.
Yeah,
So I mean,
know.
that one big change, yes, but not unexpected. Things like difference in Python versions that are supported in RHEL 8. So maybe the system isn't running a native Python app
Right.
Maybe I've containerized that app, or maybe there's nothing using Python other than the system. So that's good to know. So I have a starting place. But I do like that the pre-upgrade analysis errs on the side of caution. Then it's up to the systems administration team to decide whether or not those risks are acceptable. And then, as someone so colorfully put it in the chat, YOLO. You only live once. You've taken your backups. You're a good, smart sysadmin. We hope. Uh, so run the upgrade. See what breaks, and then take that lesson and apply it to the next batch of systems. Because you don't have to do this as a one-off, and you definitely don't have to do 70,000 systems at once.
Exactly. So great segue to, I'm going to launch the upgrade for my, what was it called? Open Panda. That's one problem with the names changing every time you deploy one of these.
The only reason I've remembered is because it made me think that I could go for some Panda Express right now.
Yeah, I already had my lunch, thankfully. Okay, so we launched that
Kansas
job.
City
You can
comment.
see. Oh, is that right? I thought, isn't that like a national chain or
Oh,
something?
that's what I'm saying. In Kansas City, you get your Chinese food from a national chain. That's my point.
Oh, are you going to take that, Eric?
Unfortunately, looking at the time, I guess I'm going to just have to take that on the cheek and run with it.
I'm
Suck
sorry,
it up.
I withdraw.
All right. Yeah,
I apologize to the entire Midwest.
I know.
See me after class.
We submitted the upgrade now because this is a workflow job template. Instead of taking us straight to the log output, it takes us to this pretty little visualization of the workflow steps, and we can see right now the snapshot is happening, and when that finishes, it'll move on to this one, which is the actual upgrade. But I can go back to the jobs and look at the individual actual playbook runs that are happening under that workflow and see the log output for those. So that's kind of how that works in AAP. As I said, this takes between 15 and 20 minutes. So let's skip over to the pre-baked RHEL 7 host that I upgraded earlier. And let's see how it looks. I know this is a geeky show, so we got to get down to the command line, right? At some point.
Definitely.
Okay, so that was Heroic Minnow that we upgraded earlier. And here it is. And if I do uname -r, I can see it's running a RHEL 8 kernel, and Red Hat release says it's RHEL 8, and just in case there are skeptics out there say, hey, well, how do we know this was really running RHEL 7 before? We can do last reboot command, and we can see here is the first time it booted when we provisioned the workshop. During the workshop provisioning, it upgrades the instance to all the latest RHEL 7 packages. So then it came up under this newer RHEL 7 kernel. And then here's where we did the in-place upgrade. And after the in-place upgrade, it comes up on a RHEL 8 kernel. And then it comes up on a RHEL 8 kernel again. It actually reboots twice during the upgrade because it comes up once, and then it does a SE Linux relabel, and then it comes up again after that. So there you go. There's your proof. And there's something else I want to show you on this host that's really good to talk about is we have a web application running here. And we talked about the those applications that have all that technical debt and so forth. Well, here we've got one, and it's a Java application because all the best business apps are Java apparently, even though Oracle isn't open sourcey about their JDK anymore. Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry. So yeah, this is something called the Spring Boot Pet Clinic sample app. It's kind of just a demonstration app. It's Java, it's Spring Framework. I don't even know what that is. I'm not a Java developer or anything. It's got a MySQL database behind it, so it can go into the find owners function. Here are the owners. Here's George Franklin. He's got a cat named Leo. Let's add another pet to George Franklin's collection of pets. What's your cat's name, Eric?
So our kids just got a cat named Nova.
Nova. Okay, Nova it is. And Nova was born yesterday, and Nova is a cat, and we'll add this pet. And now we can see Leo's got George Franklin has Leo and Nova. Okay, remember that. This will be very important. Okay, so anyway, we've got the app. This app was working before the upgrade. It's still working after the upgrade because it's sitting on top of Java, and the Java is still working, and the Java sits on top of the RHEL system libraries, which have really good forward compatibility going, from RHEL version to RHEL version. So everything still works.
To clarify, I'm a dog guy. My kids have a cat at their mom's house, so.
Oh, is there
a
cat versus dog debate going on in the chat or something?
No, I just wanted to go on record.
Okay, I'm a cat guy. Just so you dog people can hate me even more. Well,
now it's my turn to try not to derail the conversation.
All right. You know what? What if that upgrade had gone badly? What if that upgrade of heroic minnow had actually failed really, really badly? Like, let's simulate that. And for the exercises that we put together for the training workshop, we have an exercise that offers the student a number of different options for how to really ruin their RHEL instance. Like, you can do RM minus RF /star. Haven't you always wanted to try that? Or RPM minus no deps, remove the glibc package. That'll definitely mess it up. If we just want to mess up our app, we could remove our JDK. This one will wipe the boot record, and this, of course, we all know is a terrible fork bomb. But let me ask the YouTube audience, which one should we try to simulate our failure before we roll back and save the day?
So I'll help limit the options by one, because we tried the fork bomb yesterday during a dry run, and it was actually very anticlimactic. It ran for maybe a couple of seconds, and then you just got logged out and couldn't log back in. It wasn't as gratifying as I was hoping. I mean, the fork bomb, you just get kicked out, but something like watching all these packages get deleted. I did that once.
The RM minus RF /star is actually the best if you want drama. So let's do that.
It was always gratifying to take an old server that we didn't need anymore. I did that once to just delete everything and then watch as slowly all the commands just didn't work anymore. It's like, yes, die, you ancient piece of garbage. I'm so ready to be done with you.
There we go. Now you're thinking, hey, you're root. Why are you getting all these permissions denied? But it's just because you've got read-only objects under the procfs and things like that. So don't worry, it really is doing damage. What I love about this is usually it comes back to a prompt. How can this be? I mean, my bash shell is gone, right? But it's just because that process is still in memory, and it's so it's still got all the file descriptors open to the deleted files, and the files don't actually go away from the file system until the reference count hits 0 and so forth. But if I try and do anything, it's like it's gonzy. So anyway, that this host has had it. We can see there's lots of disk space now. Well, no, we can't see that. Never mind. All right, let's roll it back. So I'm going to go templates and run a rollback job. And this is pretty quick. Launch. And we're going to choose heroic.
So the chat is quite entertaining. There's a couple of our viewers that are having heart attacks just looking at that slide.
Yeah.
And then there's others that are sitting back and eating popcorn watching us destroy a server. So welcome to RHEL Presents.
The fork.
Yeah,
we did this
absolutely.
yesterday.
Absolutely. Excellent. All right. My rollback job is running. I think this takes 3 or 4 minutes. So we'll get it done before the end of the episode. But yeah.
That gives us a chance to answer a couple of maybe not questions, but a couple of conversations that have popped up. One of the things that came up was going from RHEL 7 to RHEL 9. I have thoughts and opinions on this, but you guys are the experts. Why don't you tell us about if I'm running RHEL 7, somebody's got, I think Diablo's running EXT3 and EXT4 on a RHEL 7 system. They really want to get to 9. So what are your thoughts and opinions?
So the reason that you can't just go from 7 to 9 using the Leapp tool is that's really far, and these package evolutions are in fact difficult, right? So the second question would be, is it advisable to go from 7 to 8 and then 8 to 9 in a single downtime event? And our best practice answer to that piece is no, because the concern there is that you won't know what broke necessarily. It would be very hard to debug something like that. So what we try to say is, look, upgrade 7 to 8, let it cook a while. Life is good, then do the 8 to 9. As someone said in the chat, the 8 to 9 is cleaner anyways, right? The rate of change between 7 and 8 is out. You said that? All right.
Yep.
So the rate of change between 7 and 8 was larger than it's rate of change. The actual changes between 7 and 8 were less significant were more significant than between 8 and 9. So it's just the safe way to go. I mean, we do have customers, for example, that have like an appliance type setup or something, and that's very, very stable. And if they can figure out how to safely do both at once, that's up to them. But it's probably not, like I'm just saying, like for the kind of pets that you name after your cats or dogs servers, those are tricky. So anyway.
And I would just add, just for reference, between RHEL 7 and RHEL 9, I believe it's about 8 years of time, which, so I mean, it's a significant amount of time that passed between those two releases, which is why we have the requirement to go from 7 to 8 and then 8 to 9.
I haven't done it in a minute, but years ago, when you would have to bare metal a Windows server, you would spend like a day patching.
Yep. I don't miss those days.
I know.
Hey, I see another question in the chat that I want to address real quickly, and that is around RHEL 6 uses ext4 file systems, and RHEL 7, the default is XFS file systems. And are we going to convert our ext4 file systems to XFS? I've had a couple customers ask this question. My opinion, my recommendation is there's no reason to change the file system format. The default file system type is different, but ext4 is still supported even in RHEL 9, right? And probably will be in RHEL 10. So there's really no reason to change it just because the default changed. And it's a big deal changing, from one file system type to another. I mean, there's some hacks where it can kind of be done in place and stuff, but it's risky, and there's really no benefit to changing it. The reason that the default change to XFS is because XFS is it has higher capacity, it can support larger files and so forth. But if your app's been running fine with all its technical debt and drift, and you don't want to touch or change anything for the last 10 years, and it's been fine with the capacity limits of EXT, then stick with EXT. You don't need XFS. Don't introduce more changes than what you need to change just to keep the app alive and give yourself a few more years on that lease on your technical debt.
So this will expose my own ignorance, but the one concern I had in that conversation was EXT3 versus 4. It's not just it's not like a package where you can go in and upgrade from one version to the next. You'd have to reformat, wouldn't you?
Actually, 3 to 4, I don't know.
Right.
I think that's just a change in the journaling or something.
Yeah.
But so it's almost like just a different file system option. I don't think you need to do it. But going from ext4 to XFS is a completely different thing. That's like going from a fat file system to NTFS for you Windows people.
Yeah, dirty word. We said Windows far too many times.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think it is important to note, though, like there are some configurations that people can have where in-place upgrades are just not going to be possible, depending on, like, for example, if you're using encrypted file systems currently, the Leapp upgrade tool doesn't support that. So you definitely want to read through the documentation, understand what the prereqs are, what the requirements are. Because while in-place upgrades will cover a large number of use cases, there are some specialized use cases where it might not work for you.
Yeah, and just to put a button on the EXT and XT3 and 4 are fully supported with no conversation really about not doing that anymore. 2, be very afraid, but so if you're in EXT2, you should be very, very worried because there's all kinds of little bad things that can happen. But 3 and 4, I think, like someone said, you can upgrade from 3 to 4 in place, and Vincent said that, and there's no reason to. When it came up in the chat, there's really, as Bob said, there's no reason to switch if you don't have to.
Yeah. So there's several people who mentioned in the chat that 3 to 4 is supported in place, and it's kind of a non-event. So maybe that's why I'd never heard of any issues. So, but it looks like our rollback was successful. Why don't we take a look?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the rollback job output that we were watching. It has run successfully. It took 5.5 minutes, which is longer than usual, but maybe Amazon is running slow today. And I went over to the pet host. I had to reconnect because, of course, it was rebooted as part of all that fun. And yeah, look, it's back to RHEL 7. I did last reboot, and we don't even see any of those entries for the what do you call it? When it had the RHEL 8 kernel. So we're we turn the clock back in time. And then one last thing, and I know we're almost out of time, but if we go back to our pet clinic here, and Amazon has probably changed my IP address, so we have to do this. And my pet application is still working, but I lost my data because I had a big all-in-one snapshot. So warn your app teams if you're doing big all-in-one snapshots and not just snapshotting your OS.
So rollbacks work, but animals may die. Is that what we're?
Oh my gosh!
And on that note,
I'm just calling it as I see it. Actually,
today's episode has been brought to you.
Yeah, the Humane Society is going to come out of this now.
Right. Lights are flashing. PETA is surrounding my house.
No animals were harmed in the making of this demo.
just database information.
Yeah.
So as we kind of come close to the end of our hour, as per usual, we didn't get through all of the agenda, all the things we wanted to talk about, but there are a ton of resources out on our website. We've got a upgrade landing page somewhere. I couldn't find it just searching around while we were talking, so I'll grab that here in a little bit. But there is a landing page with tons of resources, videos, labs, information, graphics, anything out there to help you. Anything to help you get acclimated to the in-place
in the
upgrade
last
process.
15 minutes of your show, I do want you to throw up this one last slide just for a second so people can screenshot it or whatever. Everything you saw today, the Ansible playbooks, the Ansible rules for Leapp, the whole workshop environment, and the provisioning that makes it happen, all of that is upstream open source. And these are the GitHub repos that you can go to take a look at it. The collection of Ansible rules for Leapp is really robust and reliable. And I know of at least one banking customer that is using those in their environment. So if you're going to do RHEL in-place upgrade automation, definitely check out infra.leap. It's available on Galaxy, or you can just get it from GitHub.
Awesome. Yeah, you read my mind. I was going to mention that all this stuff, just like our tools and our operating system, are open source. So you've got links to that here in the episode. We'll get those copied over into the show notes here shortly. One other thing I wanted to point out, and I think Bob mentioned it in chat, was that what we demonstrated today was kind of the Cadillac experience. This was fully automated. It can be done at scale. Everything, snapshots, rollbacks, pre-upgrade analysis. You can pare out pieces of this that you don't need. Obviously, what we showed was best practice. I mean, you should have backups and snapshots, right? Sysadmins, you have backups and they work, right? Okay.
Of course.
Okay, just making sure.
Don't ask that question though.
But
and
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just so one last plug, which a number of people in our services organization have asked me to pass on, which is if you want help doing this, we're here to help. Reach out to your account team, and services can do this. That's what my job has been the last 6 months, is getting the services organization enabled to deliver these kind of solutions for our customers. So we can definitely help. If you want to do it your own, it's all upstream, have at it. But, one way or another, automate it and upgrade early and often.
June 2024 is going to be here before you know it. So get started.
Yeah, no joke. All right. Well, Bob and Bob, thank you both for joining us. That was an awesome demo. I'm really excited to see how smoothly in-place upgrades work. If I were a sysadmin nowadays, I would be looking at how to set up my infrastructure in such a way that I never had to do a rip and replace ever again. So you've got a believer in me, although Leapp was one of the projects assigned to me for my day job, so I didn't have a choice. But really glad you guys came on and shared this. This was a representing of a summit session this past year, but we wanted to kind of strip out some of the slides and have more of a conversation about it. Love all of you that joined us in chat. A lot of great questions, a lot of great insight, especially even got to look at a particular use case. Thank you, Diablo, for sharing that. That's why we do this show every couple of weeks. Really, really enjoy it. This is probably the highlight of my week, each week, getting to share with each of you. Brian, thank you so much for co-hosting with me. I really appreciate your input, as well as your attention to the episode guide that I usually throw away and just say whatever comes to mind. If you want to catch more content from us, Brian and I will be live again in 2 weeks on Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll be catching up with the Fedora project lead, Mr. Matthew Miller himself. He was on about this time last year, and it's been a bit. Lots changed in the Fedora community. Lots coming up. So check back on RHEL Presents in 2 weeks, where we'll be talking about Fedora Linux. This Friday, we have Into the Terminal live. Same channel, different time. Friday, noon Eastern. We'll be talking about operationalizing containers. We've been talking about how to package and utilize your homegrown applications. We're going to continue that story arc by talking about how to. Last week, we put an application in a container. This week, we're going to show you how to deploy it. So catch Nate and Scott, and I'll be hanging out in behind the scenes, being Mr. Producer. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is on July 25th, we are trying something new on the RHEL channel. We are going to do a 10-episode mini-series looking at modernizing your Red Hat Enterprise Linux management. So how can you use a lot of the tools we looked at today to both analyze, monitor, and remediate your RHEL infrastructure at scale. So Mr. John Spinks from the Red Hat Insights team is going to be joining me for that. So we'll be live every Tuesday around 2 p.m. So about the same time as this show, but on Tuesday. If that's too much to write down and keep track of, guess what? I've got some great news for you. You can just hit that subscribe button, click the little notification icon, and you'll get notified every single time we go live. Also, follow us on Twitter at RHEL, so you get notified of any upcoming events, new content, as well as anytime we're going to go live. So on behalf of myself, my co-host Brian Smith, our guests Bob, and the entire Red Hat Enterprise Linux team, thank you all so much for joining us. This has been RHEL Presents, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Eric. Bye, everybody.
Thanks everybody.